freezing night after a long ride in an open carriage, wouldn't you think there'd be a scramble for that position? A damn long building. One wonders if it sure looks like one single building, not a couple cobbled together. My guess is that we're at a church. There is one church, and it may be the Eastern Orthodox, that uses a chicken instead of a cross, because the chicken is a symbol for warding off evil. So this is novel because it's wood, a rounded ceiling, in spite of the peaked roof. These old pews that actually appear to be roped off or gated off for families. Who knows? But a novelty nevertheless, having doors. A beautifully painted ceiling when you consider it's on wood. Extravagant carving in wood. Remember, this was the day of wood and we're in the forest. So what would you expect? But where did this come from? You'd have to have a better knowledge of Latvia to appreciate that. But since 80% of it's covered in wood, no surprise that this place came from a heavily wooded area. What did not? A low-ceilinged area for the choir and perhaps a small organ. And the older gentleman that takes care of this, and we had a little chat. He speaks very good English. Church in Latvia made of trees. I don't know if he meant wood in general or rough-hewn wood, literally direct from trees. Had a great deal of processing. Examples of older crosses, as I'm sure burial markers. But notice the triangular shapes in this one would almost seem like a protective device. These little mini chapels and or crosses were for the purpose of causing people to pause for a moment during their day and reflect, looking up and take their hats off and give thanks to their God. Another old homestead. Notice the roof made out of wood shakes, but small ones that overlap not only from top to bottom, but from one side to the other, like shiplap. This is probably the barn area. But you can imagine this being a very lively homestead. I believe we go here next. It's a hut for a water pump. I don't know if they mean literally a pump. If so, I assume it's a hand-operated pump. You're arriving back to your home. A fairly substantial layout with these nice big farm buildings. Notice the detail, just for the sake of aesthetics. Simple but interesting. Remember, all of this had to be moved from wherever it was and then rebuilt. And about as we enter this house, just so you can get a sense of things. Number one, these massive beams, but this center portion, which obviously housed the fireplace and any kind of what might be called a stove. Here, classic woodworking implements, and maybe this entry room was used for this purpose. Look at some of the furniture here, an individual bed, that's rare. I mean, in some of the older places we've seen. So this must have been a relatively recent innovation in structure, or maybe the furniture is. And this is an interesting stove. We haven't seen anything like that before. Notice another bed squirreled over there, which would be wonderful in the wintertime. Sleep nice and comfortable. This gives an idea of what the little items were there that perhaps were like heat conductors. More beds. This would have been the kitchen also. The importance of this structure that you're seeing is it's totally encloses the fire and exits the heat directly outside without exposing the building. So many other places we've seen did. This very interesting vessel, literally carved from a log. Shovel with an iron blade, if you will. Garden as it might have been. Notice some of the detail there in the roof supports. Not much, but quite a little bit when you consider that these people had lives to live. Much work. Method of coping. I think it may be called the Swedish cope. No surprise here for a utilitarian. Whether this little pond was on the original site, I don't know, but it's not just a frivolous aesthetic. Here you could raise fish, maybe other things like frogs, I don't know. If you had a property that you had obtained because it had a spring, this might be your fresh water. A cattle barn, but again, notice there's aesthetics involved. Old grinding stone. This was used as a residence. As it is, you can see where grains would be stored. I wonder if that's it is. That's another one of those hollowed out logs for storage. Notice the panel at the back. This little building, the bathhouse. The bathhouse. The bathhouse. That may mean sauna. Notice the brick. It means kill the smell of the farmer's BO. See this very often, probably didn't in their day, and that's a windmill in the middle of the forest. Big deals, weren't they? Decades of sweat that poured out onto this wooden stump that's contained by that metal rim in this blacksmith shop. An interesting old building made of vertical logs and thatch roof. And each of these caretakers makes it their personal pride to make this look as livable as can be. Big and rough timbers. Again, the double-sided rooms over a middle portion for livestock. They were dark. This might have been the kitchen out here. Again, an effort to at least protect the homestead, although it really doesn't, as you can see. Wait, that was just a place where the fire was that would migrate back into here somewhere to provide heat, but I don't see where the exhaust was. May not have been any. This gives an idea of what the little items were there that perhaps were like heat conductors. Little crib, hanging crib to keep critters away, as did these beds to some degree. this was for. Might have been an old clock. No, it looks, well, interesting that it goes right straight through that bench, or the bench was built around it. I mean, interesting, it's part of the weaving process, I suspect, or maybe working on nets. Maybe that's why the net's there to give us a clue.